Erev Tov, everyone. So, first of all, welcome to the Shiur, the weekly Shiur of Zera Shimshon. As we know that whoever needs brachot for himself, for his children and grandchildren, the author of Zera Shimshon, the book Zera Shimshon, says that all kind of blessing can arrive and can reach the person that is reading in his book. So may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that everything that we need on a personal level should happen. B'ezrat Hashem, zivugim, marriage, good education of children, good health, wealth, B'ezrat Hashem, anything that we need. And of course for the success of Daniel and Yosef Meirov, which are the sponsor of the Shiur. Shalom Rachminov, that is also the sponsor of the Shiur, and Leilu Nishmat, lehavdil ben achaim lachaim, make a separation between people that are alive and people that are not alive. Elazar HaKohen ben Angela, his soul should have an elevation, that the zechut of this Shiur should bless the whole community and everyone. So this week, Parshat Tetzaveh, we are going to speak about the common point between the Parasha Teruma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel and Pekudei. All those parashiot, the end of the book of Shemot, we are speaking about the creation, the building of the Mishkan. And we see something very interesting. The Pasuk says, whenever Hashem came to Moshe to tell him, build the menorah, Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time to understand the menorah. Therefore the Pasuk says, Veze ma'aseh ha-menorah, and this is the way of building the menorah. And the question comes to mind, what was so hard to understand for Moshe? The shape of the menorah. We see the outcome of the menorah, 3 branches on the right, 3 branches on the left, 1 branch in the middle. What's so hard to understand? Until Moshe, and the Midrash says, Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time to understand it until HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to him and he showed him a menorah in fire. He says, you see that shape? This is what I want. As if he doesn't understand. And the question that the Zera Shimshon has this week on this parasha is, what was so hard for Moshe to understand the shape of the menorah? And the Zera Shimshon starts his answer like this. He says that it's not the only time that Moshe Rabbeinu has a hard time to understand a specific mitzvah. We see earlier when the Jewish people came out from Egypt, they got their first mitzvah. The first mitzvah, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the month of Nisan will be the first month of the calendar in the Jewish people. Because you went out from Egypt, you became a nation on the month of Nisan, so Nisan will be the first month of all the months of the year. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. And the sages are saying, from that sentence that the Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, this is the month, the first month of the calendar of the year, we understand Veze ma'aseh menorah, Veze HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, that Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time. He had a hard time because the Kadosh Baruch Hu told to Moshe the whole system of the planets, how it's work, what are the signs for the new month, what are the signs for the end of the month, what should we do this time and that time, what are the seasons. He's explaining the whole system, how it's work, and Moshe Rabbeinu has a very hard time to understand. And the Pasuk says, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. This is the moon that it should be seen when is the beginning of the month. Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time. How can it be, I don't know, the moon? And this is the question of the Zera Shimshon. What was so hard to understand? Why Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time to understand the beginning of the month? Now, something very interesting is that whenever we are speaking about the calendar, we say that the Torah says the month of Nisan is the first month of the calendar. But we all know that Rosh Hashanah, we do not do Rosh Hashanah on the first day of Nisan. We do it on the 7th month from Nisan, which is the month of Tishri. So how come that we say the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, is on Tishri? And here the answer from the sages is the following, that the Jewish people have 4 Rosh Hashanah, 4 beginning of year. We have the Rosh Hashanah of the human beings, which is the creation of Adam HaRishon on the first day of Tishri. But you have also the Rosh Hashanah of the kings, the Rosh Hashanah of the Shemitah and Yovel. So we have many times, many beginnings, many cycles. And therefore, the beginning of the human being, which is Adam HaRishon, which is the Rosh Hashanah that we are celebrating even today, the first day of Tishri, is not the beginning of the nation of the Jewish people, which is the month of Nisan. And therefore, there is no contradiction. But the Torah gives a mitzvah, Shamor et Chodesh Ha'aviv. Be careful, because the month of Nisan must be in the season of spring season. What's the issue? Why the Torah needs to give a special mitzvah for that? Because the Jewish calendar is a very flexible calendar, or even more, it's a very accurate calendar. And if we do not apply all the rules of the calendar, we very easily go to a wrong direction. And we start to count wrongly all the days of the year. Why is that? Let me give you an example. When we are using the regular calendar that we know, January, February, etc., what are we counting? We are counting 12 months. But this is a solar calendar. We are splitting the year in 12 parts, and this is our calendar. The calendar, January, the common calendar. But let me ask you a question. At the end of January, is there something happening in the space, by the sun, by the moon? Nothing happens, because we do not count this calendar on the moon, but on the sun. And after each month, the sun doesn't change. There is no significant physical changement in the space after the first month or second month. So they decided that a month should be 30 days, or 31 days, and then according to that we can count a year of 365 days of the year. But concretely, when we see in the space on the planet, we don't see any changement. What we do see according to that calendar, we see the seasons. The sun gets closer or gets more far away from Earth, so therefore we have summer time and we have also winter time. So we have a physical situation happening in the world, but not according to the month, according to the seasons, because the calendar that we have, that we count January, February, is a calendar, a solar calendar, and the sun gives the season, but not a specific. It doesn't show anything specific after each month. Now, if we count only on the moon, there is a calendar. Muslims are using that calendar, the calendar of the moon. This is maybe the reason why the sign of Muslims is a moon, because they are counting always on the moon. So the moon, there is a practical, physical. We can see that this is the month. This is the end of the month or the beginning of the month, according to the moon, because the moon changes. At the beginning of the month, the moon is very little, and then at the 15th of the month, the moon is full, and then at the end of the month is again very little and disappearing, and then when it reappears again, this is the beginning of the month. So it means that according to that calendar, there is the idea of the month, because each month something changes on the planet. The moon changes. So according to the cycle of the moon, This is the cycle of the month. So to recap, the calendar, the sun calendar is showing seasons, and the moon calendar is showing months. So we have the commune calendar counting on the sun, and then you have the Muslim calendar, which is counted on the moon only. And here comes the calendar of the Jewish people. The Torah says, be careful, because I want you to count the moon, of course, because this is the idea of a month. From where comes the idea of a month? From the moon, because the cycle of the moon is a month. So you need to count on the moon. But there is an issue, because the seasons, which is the sun, and the moon have a difference of 11 days apart on a year. It means that when the sun finishes 12 months, which is 365 days, the moon finished 12 times also the year, but after 11 days less. 54 days. So it means that every year that the moon and the sun makes a cycle, you have the moon making the cycle with 11 days before. So after 3 years, what do you have? You have a month apart between the calendar of the sun and the calendar of the moon, because every year the sun goes faster by 11 days. So after 1 year is 11 days, then second year 22, and then third year 33 days. And therefore we can see by the Muslim religion that they are Ramadan, right? They are celebrating it sometimes in the summertime, and then sometime in the winter time, then springtime. It runs all over the calendar. Why it's not specific? Why it's not a date like by us? Pesach is Pesach. Because they count only on the moon, and because they don't count the seasons, so they don't care about the season. For them, the moon is the main thing, and because they count only on the moon, so sometimes that date that they have to celebrate the Ramadan is on summertime, because they don't care about the seasons. Always there is 11 days apart, so it goes back and back and back and back, and then it runs all over the calendar, sometimes in the summertime, sometimes in the winter time, and therefore they have differences. The Torah comes and says, Shamor et Chodesh Ha'aviv. I want you to count the moon, because this is the month. But I want you also to count in a way that you're always going to keep Pesach in the springtime, Ha'aviv, in the springtime. How can it be? If we count on the moon, so the season goes faster, and the moon goes slower, meaning the moon finishes the cycle faster, because it's only by 354 days is finishing the cycle. The sun longer, because it's 365, right? So the seasons are jumping year to year. So how can we keep Pesach on the same season, which is the spring? Therefore, we have here the idea of 2 Adar. The leap year, we call it. 2 Adar. What does that mean? Every 3 or 2 years. Sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 2 years. The sages are saying, in 19 years, you have 7 times leap year. 7 times. 19 years, 7 times. So every 2 or 3 years, because you have 33 days apart, so you need to catch up the seasons with the moon, right? So what do? You add a month in the calendar of the moon. You make a second Adar. You push away Pesach. You make a second Adar. And like this, when you have a extra month that you added, so the 30 days that you was late, you catched up, and now you are again on the good seasons. So in other words, you have the Jewish calendar taking care of the sun by the seasons, Chodesh Ha'aviv, the springtime, and the month by the moon. So it's the most accurate because we are taking care of both of them. We are taking the seasons and the sun and the moon together. So, as I said, 19 years, we have 7 leap years. 7 leap years. And it looks a little bit hard to understand because, of course, I told you quickly all the things, but there is calculations and there is a lot of things behind this idea of the leap year, when to add a month, when we should not add a month, etc. When it's 2 years, when it's 3, when we do it on the 3rd year. It's a big, so it's hard to understand, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, he might also have a hard time to understand. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to him and he says, Ze HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, this is the moon that you need to see every month in order to declare that this is the new month. He had a hard time to understand. But the Zera Shimshon doesn't accept it. Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time to understand the system of the planets. This is Moshe Rabbeinu understood things that are tremendously hard to understand. Like what? Like Paraduma. Paraduma, Moshe Rabbeinu understood it, and Shlomo HaMelech, which is the smartest person, the wisest person in the whole history, he couldn't understand. But Moshe Rabbeinu, which he learned from Hashem directly, he understood it. So how come that we say that the months he had a hard time to understand? There must be something behind it. So basically, we see that we have 2 ideas. We have Ze, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu showing Moshe Rabbeinu the shape of the menorah, because he had a hard time to understand it. And then you have the topic of the month, Kiddush HaChodesh. Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time, and Hashem is coming to him and he says, this is the moon. He had a hard time as well. And the question of Zera Shimshon is, it cannot be that it was so hard to understand. There is something a little bit deeper that didn't make sense for Moshe, and therefore Hashem came to him and he says, no matter what you think, this is what it should happen. Because he had a thought in his mind that didn't let him go smooth with the mitzvah, let's say. So he had the question that he understood, he received from God all the mitzvot as is, he didn't change anything, but he had in his back of his mind maybe something. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, in those 2, you have a hard time to follow those mitzvot, no problem. This is what it should be. You don't have to change anything about it because it is what it is. And the Zera Shimshon wants to know what is behind it. What was the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't? I don't want to say accept, because Moshe Rabbeinu was one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was connected, so he accepted everything. But he had a hard time with it. What was the idea? So, you know that in order to understand that, the Zera Shimshon is asking a question: why the menorah has 7 branches? You have 3 branches on the right, 3 branches on the left, and 1 in the middle. Why only 7, not 8, not 6? What's number 7? Zera Shimshon is asking that question, and he's answering differently than we usually answer. Or usually we say because there is 7 kinds of neshamot, we want to eliminate them. The Zera Shimshon says the menorah was the lighting of the menorah during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu was a preparation for conquering the land of Israel. Avraham Avinu got the promise from God that he will get the promised land. He was there. He made an alliance with God himself, so he got the land. So Moshe Rabbeinu is preparing himself in order to conquer that land. How is preparing himself for 40 years before entering the land of Israel? He's lighting the menorah. What's the connection with the 7 branches? Because in Eretz Israel it was 7 nations living there. And each branch was made for one of those 7 nations on a Kabbalistic note. 7 emotions that a human being has, bad emotions. Moshe Rabbeinu, with Aaron HaKohen, of course, the Kohen is coming and lighting the menorah every day in order to unlight the 7 nations. And when Yeshua afterwards, long time after, He's founding himself with the Jewish people in front of Yericho, the first city to conquer in Eretz Israel. And it says that Yericho had a wall, a cube. Usually a wall is thin but tall. So when you push it or you can break it easily because it's thin. But if imagine the wall is a cube, full cube, you cannot push it, you cannot destroy it, you cannot do anything. This is Yericho. 7 walls like this. How can you get there? It was a miracle, Yoshua, in the book of Yoshua, it says, it was a big miracle. And by the end, those walls got swallowed by earth, by the ground. How that miracle happened? You know how? Because of the lighting of the menorah. Because the lighting of the menorah, they enlightened those nations that were behind Yericho. So because we enlightened them, so automatically this big miracle happened. And now we understand why the menorah has 7 branches. You know why? Because of the 7 nations of Israel, in Eretz Canaan, before the Jewish people came to conquer the land. Now, let me take you now like 500 years after that. In the time of Shlomo HaMelech wants to build the first Bet HaMikdash. He's building it, and he's putting in the items of the Bet HaMikdash. One of the items is the menorah. Which menorah he brought in? The menorah of Moshe Rabbeinu that he did in the desert. That miraculous menorah that Moshe Rabbeinu took a block of gold and he threw it into the fire and he came up that menorah in one piece. Shlomo HaMelech took it and he brought it into the Bet HaMikdash. But not only that, he also built 10 other menorahs, meaning total 10. 10 other menorahs. And the question of the Zera Shimshon is, why he built 10 other menorahs? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a menorah. This is what they had in the desert for 40 years. For all the time before Shlomo HaMelech, they never had such a thing of 10 other menorahs. Why? Shlomo HaMelech, 10 more menorahs. Moshe Rabbeinu had only 1. And according to Kabbalah, very interesting, he says like this: if you take 10 times the 7 branches, it's 70. Because Shlomo HaMelech understood that from his time he needs to prepare now to the next level. They conquered Israel already with Yoshua. The 7 nations was conquered already. Now, what I mean by conquered? They understood the revelation of God in the world. They understood the connection of the Jewish people with God. So they automatically let the Jewish people come in. This is what means conquering. So at the time, Shlomo HaMelech said, now we need to prepare to the next level, to enlightening the 70 nations of the world. There is 70 kinds of nations in the world, and those nations also needs to be enlightened, also needs to understand the revelation of God in this world and the connection of the Jewish people with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. So therefore he built 10 other menorot, 70 branches, in order to enlighten them. So it's a preparation for the ultimate coming of Mashiach. And here we can understand something unbelievable. Why Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time with the mitzvah of menorah? Moshe Rabbeinu at that time, when he got the mitzvah to build the menorah, in his mind he's coming into Eretz Israel. In his mind, he's going to conquer Eretz Israel, to come in and to just, that's it. Mashiach is coming when he's coming to Eretz Israel. And here comes the Kadosh Baruch Hu and he says, Hashem says, build 7 branches. Why 7 branches? I need to enlighten 70 nations. I'm going to get into Eretz Israel and I will enlighten the 70 nations. Why 7 branches? As if I need to enlighten only the 7 nations of Eretz Canaan. It's not my job. It's not only my job. I will conquer the land and also I will enlighten the 70 nations. So Moshe Rabbeinu asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why you do not want me to do a menorah of 70 branches? To enlighten the 70 nations. This was the issue of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know that he will not get into Eretz Israel. He didn't know that he will pass away in the desert with his generation. So therefore, he was sure that his job is to enlighten not 7 nations, 70 nations. So why 7 branches here? I don't understand. But afterwards, when we look back in the history, we understand. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that Moshe Rabbeinu will not enter Eretz Israel. So therefore, his message, his task was only to enlighten, to prepare the Jewish people to conquer the land of Israel, but from outside. So therefore, he enlightened only 7 branches. So it means, by the way, it's parenthesis. So it means that the issue of Moshe Rabbeinu hitting the rock instead of speaking to the rock, it's only a reason, side reason for Moshe to not coming into Eretz Israel, because that was planned from the beginning. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to figuring out how it will make sense, because he will not punish him for no reason. So he managed that idea, but he wasn't connected straight. Because of that issue, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't get into Eretz Israel. It's not connected. The plan was that Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't get into Eretz Israel anyway. Hashem wanted to figuring out, so he did it. So now we understand why Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time with the menorah. Why he had a hard time with Kiddush HaChodesh, with the moon. For the same idea. Because as we said, at the beginning of the month, the moon is very little. Then it grows until the 15th of the month. And then from the 15th and on, the moon starts to become also little and disappear. And the Kabbalah says that the 15th day of the month is like the 15th generation between Avraham Avinu and Shlomo HaMelech. Avraham Avinu, when he appeared, he started to believe, to build the Hebrews, the Jews that will believe in one God above us. This is the beginning of the moon. And then it grows by Yitzchak, Yaakov, all the sages, for 15 generations until Shlomo HaMelech, that it says, Kaima Siara Beshlimuta. This is what it says in the Gemara. That in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, the moon was full. So it means after Shlomo HaMelech, what will happen? The moon starts to become little again. It means that the empire of the Jewish people that was built for 15 generations from Abraham to Shlomo HaMelech is not anymore going to grow. It's going to be destroyed and going down. And this was the hard time. It was something that was making a hard time to Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's the leader of the Jewish people, and in his mind again, when he got the mitzvah, he thought that he's going to Eretz Israel. I'm going to Eretz Israel, he says. When I go to Eretz Israel, I will conquer the land, and I will bring the Bet HaMikdash that will stay forever. This was his vision. And Mashiach is coming. There is no afterwards being destroyed. There is no such a thing. If Moshe Rabbeinu would come in, that's it. Mashiach is coming. So he has a hard time because Hashem comes to him, to Moshe, and he says, I need you to count the months. So Moshe is asking how the moon needs to look like. So Hashem is telling him, at the beginning is small, at the middle is full, and then it's becoming a little bit small. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, 1 second, are you meaning by that the Jewish people will grow and then will be destroyed? Doesn't make sense, because I am the leader that's coming into Eretz Israel. There is no destruction after me. I am the leader, and I will finish the whole story by that. That's it. I will stay full. What you mean by saying that we need to count the months after he disappears, after the destruction? It cannot make sense. Hashem comes to him and he shows him a moon and he says, this is what should happen. No matter what you think, this is a month. But now it makes sense. Why Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time with the moon, and what Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time with the menorah. Of course, we can speak more about this, but this is the keys that I'm giving you, according to the Zera Shimshon, explaining why Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time, because we have also the mitzvah that Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time to understand, and according to that, we can also understand the other mitzvot that are also connected with the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu thinking coming into Eretz Israel, but by the end he didn't come in, and because of that, he had a hard time at the beginning. Yes.
So, what happens once the Geulah comes?
Yes.
It will be no more men around. There will be.
So whenever Mashiach is coming, whenever we are making Birkat Levana, we bless the moon every month, right? we say, V'haya or levana ke'or hachama, that the light of the levana, of the moon, will be like the light of the sun. The sun doesn't disappear, the sun doesn't go down, it remains strong. Right? So when Mashiach is coming, the moon will remain strong. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu thought at the beginning that it should be always. Of course, when you have a mitzvah of the Torah, asking for 7 branches of the menorah, it means 7 branches. But Shlomo HaMelech made 7 branches times 10 because of the 70 nations. After Mashiach is coming, it means, when Mashiach is coming, it means that the nations are already elevated. This is the reason why Mashiach is coming, because the world is already ready. So there is no need anymore to light 70 candles, 70 like Shlomo HaMelech did, because the world came to its goal.
You do the 7?
So we are going to do 7, because 7 is also connected with many other ideas than on lighting the nations, but not 70 candles. 70, yes.
What does this mean for like the Jewish people now that we have the moon at the beginning of the month is small, then it gets full, then it gets small again. So the Jewish people, they started off in Egypt, then they went to Israel, but then they had the Galut, then they came back to Israel, then they had the Galut again. So what does that mean? Is it like we're striving to have a full moon?
So yes,
And
this is our goal, but also it has a message behind it. And the message is that whenever challenges happens to the Jewish people, and this is also connected with Purim. When a challenge happens to the Jewish people, it's not like, okay, that's it, we will disappear forever. We are a moon. Of course, we are also counting on the sun, like our calendar, but we are a moon. Moon means that we have down and up, and we will never disappear forever. And this changed the vision of a Jew on the challenges of the Jewish people. Yes, we got hit because of our actions. We got hit, but we are never ever going to be disappearing, because we are connected with God. And just like God is forever, Jewish people is forever. The Torah also is forever. It's like 3 points. It's Hashem, the Jewish people, and the Torah. Chazak u'baruch. Erev tov.
Wait, do we have 10 people?